The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend and that you're well rested and ready for another week of fun, merriment, entertainment, and just good times here in the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. I'm your host, and for the next 4 hours, actually no, for the next 2 hours tonight, because of programming network responsibilities due to the final chapter in the life and times of Her Royal Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. We're only going till midnight, and the other 2 hours are going to be part of a special broadcast that the network has a commitment to, so we must honor that as well as Her Majesty. But I'm here with you for the first 2 hours, and we come to you live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, XZBN, XZTV, and of course, Channel 54, the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. If you'd like to send me an email with any suggestions, any comments, it's xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, and on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. Before we get to my first guest this hour, a lady we've had the pleasure of having on the show many times before, Elena Lieberman, there's just a couple of programming notes that I'd like to share with you. Starting next week, we have Practical Parapsychology. It's a radio TV show for citizen scientists, and it's going to be hosted by Dr. Brian Lathy. He's the lead author of Ghost, Exploring the Haunting Reality of Paranormal Encounters, and Dr. Cindy Little, who is a published parapsychologist and field researcher, with reoccurring guest and co-host Dr. James Huran, editor-in-chief of the Journal of Scientific Exploration. So that's next week. We also have a couple of other shows that we're going to be telling you about throughout the week that are going to be starting with us. Exciting times here in the X Zone. After all, this is truly a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It is a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Joining me now is Elena Lieberman. Hello, Elena. How are you tonight?
Hello. I'm fabulous. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, it's wonderful having you. For the listeners and viewers who have just recently joined the X Zone Nation, can you share with them your biology and tell us who you are?
Well, my name is Elena Lynn Lieberman, and I have worked in the Akashic Records since 1990. So it's meant a great deal to me. I'm a spiritual teacher specializing in the Akashic Records. I give consultations, and I meet all kinds of wonderful people. I also have a background in the performing arts, so I sing as well and have had personal act for some time.
Wow, you're a lady for all seasons.
Yes.
Elena, for once again, those who may be joining us for the first time since we've come back for our 33rd season here in the X Zone, what are the Akashic Records?
Well, let me give you the traditional type of answer for that. The Akashic Records are the inscription of the soul in a field of essence. Every thought, word, deed, nuance of that soul is inscribed in this very subtle archive of being.
Okay, so where are the Akashic Records? Whoops, are you okay?
Now you hear fine.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
Yeah, it's like losing an earring. I try to go like this.
Well, I don't know. I don't wear earrings. I never have, I don't think, so I don't know what that feeling is. So where are the? It looks like you don't want to hear me. I don't want to hear him. I don't want to hear. Yeah.
I hear it better. I want to hear every word.
So where are the Akashic Records?
The Akashic Records are located in frequency, a very subtle resonance in all there is. So it might be called the unified field. And even in this resonance, an archive of being, which we move into a more modern definition, an archive of being, an inscription in essence. That is the interdimensional quality. And as I work in it, it becomes clearer and clearer to me that there's a layer under the layer. If there's an image, there's an energy under the image. And you keep holding and delving into it for greater clarity and wisdom.
So what type of information is kept in these Akashic records, and how long have they been in existence for?
You know, that's a terrific question, really. Let me answer this latter part first. We were doing some research recently. My husband looked this up, and he looked up the word Akashic. He looked it up in something called gematria, which is numerology in English. But originally, gematria came about because there were no numbers. There are only letters and vibrations. And if you look up the word Akashic, even though it's Sanskrit, if you look it up with reference to the Hebrew archive of all letters, what you get is actually God-made. It has the same vibration. El-Omed was the equivalent in Hebrew. We just found this out. I don't think anyone has done this because I began researching, noticing that the information I had was filtered, even of the past. And there's wonderful presentations now of it on YouTube and stuff. But there's a piece that is not thoroughly looked at. And so when you say, how long does it exist? It exists with creation. So creation is in it. Essence, the subtle vibration of creation actually may come from this field. It doesn't originate, but all the colorations that are talked about, all of the, what you might call the seminal spark, the divine spark, that's all in the record if you could see it, if you could reach it. What I do is deal primarily with individuals, with people coming to me. So there is a special prayer that is the key that connects to their vibration or who they are. In essence. In essence. Yeah.
So when we're talking about the creation, are we talking about the creation as told in the book of Genesis, the book that was written by Moses? In fact, weren't the first 4 books of the Bible written by Moses in the Old Testament?
Moses received them, yes. So it was through Moses that they came to be, through what he brought forward after he communed with the highest level of the divine. He discovered the highest level of the divine. That was the discovery.
So, if Moses received the message from God pertaining to the first 4 books of the Bible, does that lead us to believe that life, as we know it, only exists on this planet?
No, not at all. What it talks about are the various levels of creation. Now, the term life on this planet, when we look at something like that, we're talking about levels. We're talking about a literal level. We're talking about the interpretation of those symbols. We're talking about another level. And then we get to the level that's called Sod, or hidden, the hidden level. So that what he brought down was all levels. And he brought that down, technically, when you read commentary, in something that was 2,000 years before creation, that took on the form in our reality. Initially, they were tablets, but then they were made into scrolls. But what was interesting in commentary, and this is getting, it's related in a subtle way. What he carried down was interdimensional, because commentary tells you that some of the letters miraculously were suspended in the tablets, and that the tablets contained the entire, not just the 10 Commandments, the entire description. So it was interdimensional, even though it looked solid. So this is really an amazing, that's regular commentary. not particularly esoteric. It's esoteric, but it's regular commentary when you read the Old Testament.
Sure. And even reading the Old Testament, there are way more than just the Ten Commandments. The first 10 Commandments that Moses brought down on the tablets, everybody knows. But it seems that, okay, let's just read the first 10 Commandments because that's what Charlton Heston brought down from the mountain. So we know it has to be real, right?
So,
okay, go ahead, dear. No, go ahead.
So if we move on from that place, I became very interested in getting other information. Now, there's a lot of absolutely amazing names for the Akashic records, like Chaos in the Great Deep, or the Mother of All There Is, or these very interesting names. A lot of the names were filtered through the perception of the early theosophists. And that really started to, I think it's significant, and I think we should remember it, but there are other things. So I began to look in other places. I'm still doing it. And one of the another ancient approach was by somebody named Rabbi Abraham Abulafia. He was born in 1240. And that's the beginning of certain Kabbalistic practices, which actually got criticized later and then were accepted again about 400 years later after he lived. And what he did has to do with what we call karma. What he said, and just zeroing in on that, was that he could see the flows of the soul, and that he could see that they had knots in them. And when he said the 72 divine names with permutations, he believed he was able to untie the knots so the divine flow could move through. Now, when we talk about the Akashic records and resonance, we're talking about flows of energy. It's very subtle. Sometimes we use terms that are really concrete.
Okay, we've got to take a break. I hate to interrupt you because I'm really getting into this. I love it. And Elena, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's all such great pleasure. Exonation, if you'd like to find out more about my guest and my good friend Elena Lieberman, visit her website, dynamicmanifestation.com. And Elena and I will be back on the other side of this short break. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. Dr. Elena Lieberman. Are you a doctor?
I'm not a doctor.
Well, you are now, an honorary one.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Well, you have a lot of doctors on the show.
We sure do. We sure do.
It's wonderful.
Well, we want to get the information out there. You see, Elena, as you know, after being on the show many times throughout the years, what we try to do here in the X Zone is present as many sides to a topic that we can and allow our listener, our viewer, to make up their own mind. Like, I don't believe in shows that force feed their audience based on their own personal beliefs. I believe that it's everyone's right to form their own opinion, and it's because of guests like yourself who have the knowledge and the research that you do in order to talk about the subjects you do, that they're able to do that. So I thank you very much for all your work.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Okay, my dear friends. So let me ask you this, okay? So we understand that the Akashic, the tablets that were handed down to Moses were actually predated 2,000 years prior to the event?
Yes, they weren't in the physical creation. Now, the tablets aren't to be confused with the Akashic records. What I'm saying is that there's something to be said for how the colors and formation of existence happened. And that can lead you to the Akashic records. But according to commentary, rabbinic commentary, they existed 2,000 years prior to manifesting on any level. And there are 613 commandments, and the entire Torah was suspended, and the writing went completely through the tablets. So it clearly was not really a physical thing. You
know, you said 613 commandments, right?
Yes, there are.
Actually, we did a count, And we found 614. 614 says, "Then thou shalt listen to the X Zone."
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, I'm going to go to hell for that one. I know it.
No,
Now
there are a lot of listeners.
we know that the tablets with the Akashic records, we're looking at 2,000 years prior to when Moses received them. Am I right?
Yes, the Akashic
Okay.
records were in creation. Period.
Okay. But was that just the creation of this planet or the creation of everything, everywhere?
It's the creation of one.
Creation of one. So that would be this
So
planet
it
here.
is, you might say, no, well, you might say all, everywhere. So there's a sense of other planets. There's a sense of other dimensions. It's really a question of what we see, or our filters in the reality. There is a significant commentary regarding Torah that the reality is projected into that world, on the screen of that world, as it would be used in another world. So each world gets their own projection of it. And that's true of that particular legacy. But as far as the Akashic records, that may also be true, that it's projected into those who can receive it.
Oh, okay, so would the Akashic records be like a bookcase of encyclopedias that we used to get in the old days, like the Collier's Encyclopedia or Britannica, where planet Earth is one volume, and then another existence in another part of the universe is another volume, and so on and so forth? Or is it all in one?
The answer to that is, first of all, as far as the book or the encyclopedia, it would be how the receiver would perceive it.
Oh, okay, so the Akashic records depends on the person who is doing the research in them.
That's right.
Okay.
That's why different people, although you'll see a common thread often, will be expressing and seeing differently. And it also depends on something called the higher self.
Okay, what is that?
The higher self can be defined as the self that carries the vibrations of your soul most clearly. Another facet of it is it fully connects to the essence of your being, and your awareness of it restores you or aligns you with your God or authentic self, or the self that God gave you directly. And so how do we access that? What can we do? Well, we know when we say the prayer to access the records, there is one part of us that aligns us with this higher self. But what we also do, like in one of the classes I teach, is we have processes where we observe ourselves. What's my mind doing? What's my body feeling? What are my emotions doing? What are my thoughts? Number one is the power of observation and refining it. The second thing is the stillness, to be very still so you go into this observation mode. And from the stillness, which incidentally comes through the crown and is held in the heart, and you breathe, the breath is very important. From that, another consciousness emerges, which is the consciousness of the teacher self. The teacher self is a combination of the observer, a combination of being in stillness and just holding the energy, and something greater comes through. You're not displaced, but some wisdom comes through that is beyond what you would normally think in your waking reality.
What was it like the first time that you were able to gain access to the Akashic records?
It happened in 1990. My teacher was Mary Parker, and we were in the Bismarck Hotel in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was taught differently. And the first person who sat in front of me was a man who was angry. And I sat opposite him, and it's like the anger jumped out at me. So I threw back, and I said, "He's angry." And then she used to say, she said, "Sit up straight, dear. Just sit up straight and calm down." And then like a motion picture started forming. It's high and in. It's not down here. It's higher. Mm-hmm. And I began to see things that were. I began to see. I'll use the word see, but I felt what I saw, which I still do. I feel what I see. Now it's expanded over the years, but that was the first way. But behind it, if you could see, it's like the light behind the screen. There was love. It was, you don't have to be that way. Or there was an understanding that there was something deeper so he could move through it. And that light, I felt so much love. It was that love by the end of the first day that when I chose it, I said, just like, this is for me. I'm doing it for the rest of my life. And I did.
How does it feel to be part of something that is so wondrous? Like, here you are, Elena Lieberman, mortal, I think. You're able to make a connection with something that is esoteric, something that is very powerful.
Yes.
And you have the ability to share the information that is in these records to help mankind. How does that make you feel?
There's an awesome beauty to it.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you're not aware of yourself. You move into this awesome beauty. And it's like looking at colors that aren't colors of this world. It's very uplifting to hold and anchor that energy, to step back, and you're assisting, you're not forcing, you're just holding the energy and letting it come through. It's similar to you giving information and letting people decide. There's a letting go.
Right, okay.
It's similar.
Has there ever been a time where the information that you were receiving because of a request that was being made of you to make the connection, that you just did not want to relay to the person?
Yes. Yes.
How do you deal with that?
I have to, first of all, I have to clear myself, and
Mm-hmm.
I go into my heart and I stop. I have to make sure the information flows through me, that I don't do anything to it, because there's an interesting use of my energy when that happens. So I can't judge it. It's after the consultation where I might start to react, but I feel very supported. There are higher levels supporting me to do this. As our prayer says, there's God, there's what we call masters or loving consciousnesses called the masters of the Akashic records. That's what's supporting me. But there are people that they're in great difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
They're under various types of attacks. So I usually am able to clear that and then move away from that. I do not have a lot of that right now in my consultations. It seemed to have been a cycle, or has been cycles.
Okay. Fascinating young lady here. Elena Lieberman's our guest, Exonation. If you'd like to find out more about Elena, or maybe you'd like to arrange a one-on-one private consultation to get your Akashic records understood. And I'm sure that if you contact her on the website, that is dynamicmanifestation.com, you'll be able to contact her and work things out. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Before we go to commercial break, I'd just like to remind everyone that Practical Parapsychology is going to be starting next week here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, X Zone TV, and of course on Channel 54 on Simul TV. Some of the features and highlights include layperson discussion of research in parapsychology, plain language debates and discussions, deep analysis of paranormal topics in the news, collaborative segments with audience participation with in-home or on-field paranormal research projects, and of course they're going to use little teasers to tell you what's coming up next. In fact, what's coming up next here is a commercial. We'll be back on the other side of it. Don't go away. And welcome back. Elena Lieberman is our guest this hour, X Zone Nation, and her website is dynamicmanifestation.com. How long does it take for you to make your connection to the Akashic records?
It doesn't take long at all. It's the sacred prayer, but I do a meditation to set the space before, and then we move into the depth of the prayer, which aligns us to receive.
And how long does a reading take or last?
It's minimally 1 hour. They can range. I have some clients who will go over 2 hours.
Wow. You must be exhausted at the end of the day.
Well, yeah. It's very interesting. Some people, it's so uplifting to work with them that you have tons of energy. And some people have more going on, and so you have to take a break. But it's always fascinating, and you learn a lot from your clients. I have fascinating clients.
Can you share a few stories with us?
I had a client, actually this is a different kind of story, but I had a client, she came to me very young. Then she got married, and it was actually, I think, 20 years later that she had a baby. The baby somehow got off the pier and fell into the water.
Ooh.
And the mother was frantic. It was deep water, and the mother dove in and didn't realize how deep it was, so she was holding the baby up and had to tread water and hold the baby above the water. So she started sinking, and she remembered that during the consultation 20 years before, what had been revealed, that there was a deep potential in her to write a book. And suddenly after 10 years or 20 years in the water, she remembered that and gained strength to keep going. And she called out, and they pulled the baby and her out of the water as she was sinking down. And she told me of the story. She wrote that to me 20 years after she had gone to me. So it was an amazing, amazing story. So that's just one of them. Another one that's really fascinating. A man came to me from England for a consultation. The man had been an alcoholic, a very, very severe alcoholic. And one day, he passed out in the gutter, in the street. And his soul left him. And the soul pulled him up and looked at him face to face. And his soul said to him, if you don't stop drinking, you're going to die. So either I go back into your body and you live, or you're going to die. You must stop. And so he came to, and that was the discussion. That's where we went in the consultation. And what I saw was how he pulled strength, or where the strength was drawn from him in a positive way to create a life for himself. And he began to build that. But it was an extraordinary experience. That's an example.
Holy
Those are
cow.
two unusual examples.
I'm sure you get asked this question quite a bit, but what is the difference between a reading of the Akashic Records and a psychic reading?
Now, we know that psychic readings or psychic is a very broad range of perception. So let me say that before I make the statement.
Okay.
An Akashic record consultation brings through the information through the crown, and it resonates in the heart, and it comes through for inner development. It comes through to really elevate the person, to make decisions about how to bring grace into their life and build from their reference of peace and love. That's the nature of it. It's the inner dimension of the person. That's the nature of it. What it isn't about is a prediction on what will happen next, who you're going to meet, although people always ask about that, which is really what I see about that frequently is more what they're holding inside that will be mirrored to them. But it's not about events as much as inner development. I would say that's the difference. There is a difference in the energy too.
You wrote a book entitled The Principles of Dynamic Manifestations, as received through the Akashic Records. What was the inspiration for that book? I understand it's all about the Akashic Records, but what was it that motivated you to actually write a book about it and share it with the world?
Actually, it came from the Akashic Records. It's really not directly about the Akashic Records or how to access them. But it has a very funny story. I lived in an apartment building which had 3 stories down in the back.
Right.
I went into the basement to do your laundry. And one day I was dragging a huge gypsy bag, it's called, up the stairs. And suddenly I felt whole. I didn't know what. Suddenly it was as if I tuned into something and my heart opened up and I had joy in my heart in sharp contrast to what I was doing. It was very mundane. So it showed me immediately. I went to the inner state immediately because it was wonderful. And I ran through the house, put the laundry down, and I ran through the house and started writing thank you notes on everything. It was overflowing. It was like the fountain was overflowing with gratitude and joy because of what was in my heart that I had contacted. And to me, that reference point, now that you mention it, is the reference point of love and peace that we can access with grace when we work especially in the work in the records.
You talk about the Etheric Template. What is that?
The Etheric Template, and incidentally, it really has struck me that it sounds like the description of that Rabbi Abulafia when he says there's knots. The Etheric Template is the map that can actually be seen by many people around the physical body. You can see it around plants. You can feel it in your thoughts. You can take your hand about here and read, and if you can back off and you'll feel the thought waves, you'll feel the vibration, and you can train yourself to actually become more and more sensitive to that. And so that template is going to show that. The more uplifted you are, the more positive, the more gratitude, what happens is the karma starts to lift off. And we do that with grace in the records, but that's perceived often as knots, like knots in the map.
Right.
And that starts to unravel.
We have to take our final break. Please stand by, Elena. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to contact our guest this hour, Elena Lieberman, visit her website at www.dynamicmanifestation.com. Still to come on tonight's show, Dr. Bob Thiel will be my guest after the top of the hour as the Exo continues right here from our broadcast center and studios in I nearly said Crystal Beach again. Craig, I'm going to owe you a lot of money by the end of this show, I'll tell you. Let's try that again from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Holy cow, talk about breaking down barriers. Jeez.
Great commercials.
Yeah, thank you. Craig, Craig and I have this little bantering going on, Elena and Exonation. Because we're just in our new studios about 2.5 months, I still say the tag of Crystal Beach because we were there for 2 years. Uh-huh. You should have seen it when we moved from Hamilton, where we were for nearly 20 years, when we moved to Crystal Beach. So ever since then, Craig keeps tab on, my saying St. Catharines or Crystal Beach. And at the end of the week, if I go over 15 Crystal Beaches, I have to take him out for lunch on Saturday. So that's how Craig and I have been together, 32 years, Craig? Yeah. And he still doesn't know what kind of chicken wings I like. It's horrible. Elena, talk to us about declarations.
Declarations are very important. What they're based on, again, is the divine sound current. Mm-hmm. In the Old Testament, it's the divine utterances, but it's toning, the tone of what you say. And there are actually vowels that are uplifting, but much more behind that, the intention and the coloration of what you say, and then what you think and feel creates, period. It creates a world. And the more you say it, and again, through the observer self, you can repeat scripts, or you can repeat what you envision for yourself. Now, this manifestation is very effective on a lot of different levels. And often what we find, you can start at the basic level. If a person is speaking negatively, that's going to hold them in a certain range, that's pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. As we utter and what we see, and we begin to shape it, it goes from the inner dimension or within us out through the world, or it becomes stronger. So if we think a sound, it has one vibration. If we utter it or project it, it takes on another type of force. This is really, so your scripts that are done in the present of the way you feel would be the true essence of your life is really significant. Now, if we move into this, there's another point that I have found with clients and with the book to be very, very important about manifestation. And that has to do with anchoring something into the physical. You have an idea, but you don't do it because you don't know if it's the real path. I have questions like that frequently from people. Okay. Should I do this or should I do that? I don't understand. Should I do this or that? And what they're seeing is facets of something bigger that they don't know yet. So it's very important to get that down. Write it, paint it, any way you can. Bring it out into the physical world so that more can flow. It's the concept also with the declaration. Express it so that more energy can flow and be manifest in our physical daily lives of a higher nature.
So would the declaration be like, if you confess it, you will possess it? Yes, you could say that. It's related to it. And is there any relation or similarity between the declaration and remember years ago somebody came out with the book The Secret? Yes,
I was in a summit with some of the people in it, yeah.
So does that parallel what we're talking about here?
The Secret, one of the differences, a subtle difference is that The Secret emphasized the law of attraction. Mm-hmm. So that you would bring forward to you the complement of what you were feeling, resonating to, and that would come towards you. That's true. That is true. However, There's more to it. Let's go back to the idea of something resonating throughout a very vast field. Now, I just want to interject something that someone sent me, written by Einstein. When something vibrates, the electrons of the entire universe resonate with it. Everything is connected. The greatest tragedy of human existence is the illusion of separation. So just going with that, if we begin to express everything that is resonant everywhere, builds a symphony, so to speak. That resonance is echoed throughout, well beyond what we see. And it's uplifted. So it becomes very powerful.
Can money be spiritual?
It's very important to look, first of all, look at money in a way where you don't judge.
Mm-hmm.
It's the judgment about money that often starts to have add-ons, overlays to it, especially about people who have money or people who don't have money. So money by itself can be a divine reflection. And in the book, I actually said, I thought I'd be very criticized for saying, some people have an altar, to put it there with holy objects. So it is not disgraceful. So it is not frowned upon, or that you don't align with it.
And it's not sacrilegious.
And it's not sacrilegious. Yeah. If I'm in faith, I have deep faith. Mm-hmm. And I think money is wonderful. I have heard so many people comment about wonderful ministers who have tremendous amounts of money. And wouldn't you know, they have to be phony. It can't be that divine favor was given to them because they're uplifting people for real. You know, it's like that. But they are uplifting people for real. That is part of the divine flow for those people. It's not false. It is a way of having them elevate and deliver their message of the true soul, of the true inner person with deep alignment. So it's very positive.
The time is coming very shortly when you and I must say so long for tonight. But before we go, what are your final words that you'd like to share with the X-Zone Nation tonight?
Remember that your alignment goes this way. In other words, it goes from the crown into your heart and your breath. Don't be thrown about people who are going this way and saying things about you or want you to be a certain way. Look deep within and allow that divine flow to show you who you really are within, and then live from that place.
What's next for Elena Lieberman?
I think I'll continue my research on Kabbalah and the influence of the Akashic records. And I love being on these shows. So thank you very, very much.
Believe me, the pleasure was all ours. Let our listeners know how they can find out about more about you, and where they can get a copy of your book.
The book is on Amazon, or they can go to my website, www.dynamicmanifestation.com.
Take care of yourself, and I look forward to the next time we meet back here in the X-Zone.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure to be on your show again.
Take care, Elena.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. X-Zone Nation, Elena Lieberman was my guest this hour. And coming up in the next hour, Dr. Bob Thiel will be joining me about Church and Prophecy. Tonight, here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studio in Hamilton. No, we're not in Hamilton. God, I'll get it right one of these days. I'm going to have to get a big sign and put it right in front of me. We're in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Oh, whatever you do. Oh, my goodness. Talk about kerfluffled. All right, Craig. Looks like I'm going to buy the chicken wings again this week. We'll be back at the top of the hour as the X-Zone continues. Don't forget, X-Zone Nation, this is only a 2-hour show tonight due to network programming that takes precedence. And in this case, I think it's a wonderful thing. It's the final chapter of the life and times of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.